It's match day 8 of the Championship predictions from the Honest Football Podcast. I'm Craig Savage, and with me as always is Daniel Cody and Charlie Betts. First of all, give this video a like, subscribe to the channel, and you can follow us on Twitter at HonestFootball3. Let's recap from match day 7, and it's 5-1-1 draws over the weekend. Obviously, Forest Derby, Watford Bournemouth, Bristol City Swansea, Cardiff Middlesbrough, and Millwall Barnsley. So how that fare for all of us, though? It was a pretty good weekend. Myself and Daniel Cody, we've both got 8 points, both got a correct scoreline. We both got it in for Watford versus Bournemouth, which was a 1-1 draw. Charlie, on the other hand, only secured 4 points. It's not been a very good 2 match days for you, Charlie.
No, I've got to say just really quickly, I only got 4, but 2 of those games flipped on literally on 1 goal. And I could have been in like, I think I worked out like 10 points nearly. So it just shows how tight the Championship is. It shows how tight this competition is. The gap between me and you two is now starting to get a little bit bigger. So
I was hoping Reading didn't score third and not third.
Yeah, that's true.
Well, that would have won me the week. Mark Varney, that's in the YouTube comments, got 19 points.
The most unpredictable league in the world, and he's made it look like so easy. I mean, if this carries on for the season, we might as well just let him take over the show next year, to be honest.
I've worked out he got more points in 1 week than I got in the previous 3. So that's that shows how great an effort it was, but yeah.
So let's have a look at the table. I am top of the table still on 45 points with 6 perfect scores. Daniel Cody moves up a spot now to 2nd place on 41 with 3 perfect scores. And Charlie Betts is down in 3rd place, 37 points, but also has 3 perfect scores. So let's move on to this midweek action of match day 8. Let's start off with Tuesday night with Barnsley versus QPR, starting with Mr. QPR can do in 1. Charlie Betts.
I'm going to be polite about him this week, but everything about this screams a draw. I think there's been 8 draws between the 2 teams in their last, 5 games at each. Yeah. So between that, I can't go anything but a draw. The ridiculous thing about both of these teams is what score. I mean, genuinely, how do you predict whether QPR are going to keep a clean sheet or not? Whether they're going to go up the other end and score? Barnsley seems to score goals, but if I'm going for a draw, I'm banking on QPR scoring the same amount, obviously. So I don't know if I can do that. I'm gonna bottle it. I'm gonna go play safe down the middle. I'm gonna go for a 1-1. I think it'll be a draw, but I mean, genuinely, I genuinely don't know what score would be. But I'm gonna plump for a 1-1. No tactics, technical thing. Just go for it. 1-1.
Cody?
Well, I think the people who watched our Barnsley manager special at the weekend will have a sneak preview into what me and you are going to go for here, because I am banking on the new manager bounce. I mean, even with him just watching at the weekend, the performance was good again. And for Barnsley, it's now 3 unbeaten. And they're finally getting some sort of start to the season, albeit without that win still at the moment. QPR have been woeful since that first day of the season where they got the win. They haven't scored in the last 3 games. I'm going to bank on that to change because Barnsley are so poor at the back traditionally. But I think they'll be impressing the new manager. And I actually think this is going to be the game in the midweek as a result. I know I'm getting that in early. But I'm going to go for a thrilling 3-2 win to Barnsley. So many 2-2 draws, they're going to go 1 more this time.
Do you know what? I actually can't remember what I said on. No, I'm actually going to go for Barnsley to win. If I was obviously in the stands on Saturday, you probably would have been impressed by that result. Away to Millwall. Obviously, Millwall have done well recently. And obviously quite sturdy. You can see many as well, Millwall. But Barnsley obviously took the lead. So the manager will be very happy with that. I think that we'll get a new manager bounce. But yeah, for Barnsley, I think Barnsley will win this one 1-0. Next up, it's Blackburn Rovers. They are playing top of the table, Reading at Ewood Park. Thank you, Cody.
This is a really tough one to predict. And Blackburn are the example of why the Championship's so hard to predict. Because all the pundits yesterday were talking about good start. They'd been woeful for the 3 games before. All the goals had dried up. And then they bounced back with a 4-0 thrashing again at the weekend. It is beyond impossible. Reading continued their good form. They actually look more convincing at the weekend, if anything. But Blackburn away is probably one of the toughest games they've had all season. So I've got to be honest, and I know I'm getting all of these cliches in early. This is the hardest one of the week for me to predict. I actually don't know what to go for, to be really honest. So I'm going to go for a 1-1 draw because that's the most likely scoreline based on the weekend, and I have no idea what to go for.
Yeah, it's a tough one, to be honest. Reading, they got the job done against Rotherham. Rotherham really weren't there at the races on the weekend. Blackburn, on the other hand, brilliant 4-0 win against Coventry. Yeah. Coventry, I thought, threw the white towel after the penalty, to be honest. And that's being really polite. It's just Blackburn carved them open very easily. I think the form will continue, Reading. I really do. But I think a good 2-1 win for Reading at Ewood Park. Charlie, sorry.
See, everything we've been talking about is goals, goals, goals. And like we said before, it could probably end up 0-0. No, I think there'll be lots of goals. I don't know. In my head, I'm going for like a barnstorming 3-0. So 3-0, sorry. And then, Reading could easily rock up and win 4-0. Blackburn have got that ability of win, loss, draw, loss, win, that sort of form. So, but I'm going to go for a thriller. I'm going to go for a big high-scoring game. And I'm going to put it out there. I'm going to go for 4-3 Reading. That's your game of the week.
Wow.
Up next, it's Brentford versus Norwich City at the Brentford Community Stadium. Brentford lost to Stoke 3-2. Norwich, on the other hand, picked up 3 points just against Wycombe, where we all had a convincing Norwich win, but they just got by with a 2-1 victory for them. Norwich haven't really been convincing this season yet, but a late free kick against Wycombe, they lost to Derby 1-0. Then again, when they won the championship last time, they started slow and then went all the way up to winning the league. So I think it'll be another tough game. Brentford want to bounce back again just from that really awful defeat against Stoke. They've never beaten Stoke, but I don't think there'll be 3 points for either team. I'm going to go for safe 1-1 draw. Cody.
Similarly, I mean, there's a lot of tough games this weekend, but
All weekday.
All week. But I'm not sure what to go for with Norwich Brentford, because Brentford a late fight back against Stoke. I know they didn't get a point in the end, but they did have a good last half an hour. Norwich, like you say, I mean, the only reason they won was because, let's be honest, of a blatant dive and then the set-piece specialist putting the free kick in. So I don't know what to go for. Both teams have scored 2 more often than anything else this season, so I'm going to go for a 2-2 draw, and there's my logic.
Charlie?
Yeah, I largely agree with you. I think there will be a winner, but I think this game suits Brentford a little bit more. I'm genuinely not going over the whole fact that Stoke would go there to set up and not really go and get beat when they played against them. They were going to defend deep and all of that. Norwich, you would like to think, will be a bit more expansive, which I think might create a few more holes for Brentford to play in. I do worry about Norwich, but on the flip side of that, we mentioned about the physicality of Wycombe, and I think they did succumb to that a little bit. Brentford, again, a bit more of a footballing side, so might suit Norwich a bit more. So I think there'll be goals in it. However, in terms of clawing back points, I've got to do the best I can. So I genuinely think that Brentford will win 2-1. I think being at home, just against a team that aren't as physical and aren't going to dig in as deep and sit as deep, as Stoke did at the weekend, I think Brentford might have a bit more space to play, and they're going to win 2-1.
Up next to the Riverside, it's Middlesbrough versus Coventry. Middlesbrough picked up a draw against Cardiff, which I thought they would get over the line, but they done it. They got the point. Coventry, obviously, we just spoke about, lost 4-0 at home to Blackburn. Starting off with Daniel Cody.
I think this one's probably, and I hate to say this because it normally goes wrong, is my banker of the midweek. Coventry's last 2 away games, not scored a goal, and that's away at Barnsley, who have been leaky at the back. Brentford, okay, a slightly tougher game. Middlesbrough, unbeaten now since the second day of the season. They're doing really well. They're not winning too many games, but they look really solid defensively, not conceded more than 1 in any. So I can't see them letting in a goal to a Coventry side that I mentioned at the start of the season were weak in attack, and by the way, have been proven right. As much as I want them to stay up, Middlesbrough won't score many. So I'm just going to go for a 1-0 win.
Charlie?
Annoyingly, I was going to go for a 1-0 win, but I maybe will push out a bit and hope that Coventry come out and leave a bit of space and Middlesbrough get another one later on. So I'm going to go for 2-0. I agree with Dan in the sense of I can't, and I've said this a few times now, and the team has gone and scored, but I genuinely can't see where the goals are coming from Coventry. But yeah, Borough, I don't know. They're such a Neil Warnock sort of thing. It wouldn't surprise me if 2 set pieces, one early on, one later in the game, something like that. So 2-0 Borough, and I think they'll just keep their form going with that, really.
I have to agree on the same scoreline as Charlie, to be honest. I think it'll be a really comfortable 2-0 win. As you guys pretty much pointed out, I can't see where Coventry are going to score. I thought they gave up very easy on Saturday after the red card. 2-0 Borough, I think it'll be a very convincing win. Up next at the Liberty Stadium, it's Swansea versus Stoke. I'll start with Charlie in this one.
See, I think this will be a tougher one to call genuinely than what I thought on Saturday, because Swansea are not as expansive a side as Brentford. They're not going to come throwing the kitchen sink at you from minute 1. So that doesn't necessarily suit Stoke as much. But Stoke away from home, generally quite good. Again, they don't necessarily need to go bombing forward. Everything about me is saying a draw, but then Swansea haven't been convincing. So I'm going to back Michael O'Neill to sneak another 1-0 win away from home, Stoke City. I just don't think Swansea are in good enough form at the minute.
No, I'll be honest with you. Swansea haven't really been great. Just looking at the league table right now. I think they're in 6th right now, but obviously drawn their last 2 games, lost the game before that, but they're obviously still in the playoffs. So yeah, they weren't really great last season, to be honest. Like, they somehow got plaudits to make it into the playoffs. Maybe it's just because Nottingham Forest just caved in rather than Swansea actually doing well to actually get there. So even watching the game Swansea Luton last season, I thought they were poor then. So they're still up there. They're getting something out of nothing. Do I think they'll get something out of this game against Stoke? Absolutely. So I think Swansea will win 2-1. Cody?
Well, I've gone a little bit different to you. I was looking back when I was looking for this game. Stoke haven't actually conceded a goal away from home in any competition this year, and that includes 2 Premier League sides in the Carabao Cup. But then Swansea have scored in their last 5 games. But I'm going to go for Stoke to keep a clean sheet because it's a Michael O'Neill special. So I am going to go for their most popular away scoreline this year, which is a 1-0 win. And yes, John Obi Mikel will be brilliant again.
And the final game on Tuesday night, it's Wycombe versus Watford. Wycombe were very unlucky not to get a point against Norwich. They're getting closer. It's taking them nearly 8 games in to get really close to that point, but they just couldn't hold on against Norwich. Watford, on the other hand, not really convincing. They're not really scoring, but they're defending really well. I know I say they conceded a 96-minute equaliser that gave us the extra 2 points on the weekend, but
wait till we get to Bournemouth.
yeah, but they're very tight in the back, and obviously I know they scored 3 against Blackburn, but after that it's been 1 goal, 1 goal, 1 goal, 1 goal. But it's going to be a different story today. It's going to be a 2-0 victory for Watford. Cody?
I'm going to stick with the common scoreline. Wycombe, as you mentioned, I mean, I've talked about the Norwich situation already. It was never a free kick. They got mugged against Millwall as well with that goal that was disallowed. Both of them they should really have got a point out of. And the last 3 games, it's been by the single goal and they've competed really well. So Wycombe have now arrived as a championship club after a slight adapting period. But for Watford, I think they're going to be solid again. And I think they will keep Wycombe out. They've still only scored 2 goals all season, Wycombe. And Watford are one of the best defensive teams in the league. And I predicted them to win it, even as a Luton fan. So I've got to stick by it. So it's going to be 1-0 to Watford. But I think they might get a little scare in this game.
Charlie?
No, I mean, Watford have only let in 3 goals all season. So I think we've all agreed that Wycombe will probably not score and Watford will keep another clean sheet. It's how many Watford get at the other end. Craig, what did you go for?
2-0.
Dan went 1, so I'm going to go 3. 3-0 Watford.
We move on to Wednesday. The early kickoff on that is Preston versus Millwall at Deepdale. Starting with Cody.
Oh, thank you for that. Appreciate it. I'm not quite sure. The one thing I'm banking on for this midweek, and it's similar for the Millwall-Barnsley game, is I feel they really missed having Gary Rowett in the dugout that game. I've got to be honest with you. Obviously, with the phone calls and that, it can work really well, but there's
It
still...
worked with David Moyes.
It did, but there's still delay to the messages, and the championship is frantic. So I'm going to say that's going to harm them. Both sides are in pretty good form, so I had to try and find the difference between them somewhere because I couldn't go for a draw for basically every game all week. So I'm going to go for Preston to nick it as a result, and I think it's going to be 2-1 because there have been a lot of 2-1s for these sides this year. So 2-1 to Preston.
Just going back in your stats for draws to this week so far, you've only got 2 at the moment.
And I've just looked to see that Preston are losing at home every time as well. So that's great as well, isn't it?
Yeah. Charlie?
Well, as you know, Preston lose at home every week. So we can... I agree with Dan's sentiments to a point. See, I said about Preston not being in form. Then they picked up a couple of results recently, but I still don't think it's quite convincing at home. So I'm just going to go for a draw. Millwall not high scoring either, so the goal difference isn't great. So I'm just going to go 1-0. I think 1-0. I bottled it, but I've gone 1-0.
I don't think you bottled it, to be honest, Charlie, because I've also gone for a draw. Just looking at the table, Millwall have drawn 3 times. Preston have only drawn them once, but it's that inconsistency of only 1 defeat and 5 for Millwall. But well, I'm just looking at the table right now. The table is tight anyway. Like 14th to 6th is literally 2 points. I think this will be a good game, actually. I really do. Preston done well to come back against Huddersfield. It's 2 quick goals from Alan Brown. And Mill obviously got that point. Obviously, Grant won't be there. I'm going to go for a 2-2 draw. Next game up, it's Birmingham versus Huddersfield at St Andrews. Starting off with Charlie.
It's hard because I think Huddersfield were actually not hard done by, but they seem to have a frantic few minutes on Saturday, and that sort of obviously just cost them the game. I think if you look at the stats, they were well in the game, had more possession of the ball. 14 shots. They weren't. It wasn't like it was a sound beating or anything like that. So I still think they headed in the right direction, and obviously their form up to Saturday was very good. So it all points towards a Huddersfield win. The problem is that Birmingham's form has to change eventually. I think their players are too good. I know we said about them gelling and all of that, and they've got a good manager. They signed well over the summer. It has to turn eventually. I just don't know when. But I'm banking on it not being this week. And I'm banking on Huddersfield getting a couple of goals. Birmingham haven't scored loads, if hardly at all this season. So I'm going to go 2-0 Huddersfield.
This is probably the hardest game to actually pick because Huddersfield actually been in pretty good form, Huddersfield. 1-3 out of the last 5. Birmingham, on the other hand, they've only got the 1 win so far this season. out of 7 games. 3 points out of the last 5 games is not particularly good. So they're hard to beat, to be honest, Birmingham. The pick and draws, really, they can't seem to get over the line and wins. And I don't think they're going to do it again today for Wednesday night. I really don't see that happening. Pretty safe. I think it's going to be a 1-1 draw. Cody?
Well, Craig, I'm afraid you've stolen my scoreline. The last time we agreed on a 1-1 draw, we both got 3 points, so I'm just deciding whether to stick with it or not. Sorry, Charlie. Huddersfield have scored in all of their last 5. So I was going to go for a 0-0, but that's the thing that sort of swayed me. For Birmingham, a third of their games are 1-1, a third are 0-0, and a third they lose 1-0. So it's between the 3 results, but I have to agree with Craig and go 1-1, and I think that's probably 3 points for each of us.
Next up, it's Bournemouth versus Bristol City, a big game at the top of the table. Bournemouth haven't lost yet this season now, 7 games. They haven't lost, unbeaten, but they've drawn 4 as well. So 1-3, but drawn 4. So, yeah, obviously they've got their late rise against Watford. Never celebrated a Bournemouth goal like that before for just an extra 2 points in this prediction game. Bristol City, on the other hand, they picked up a point against Swansea at home. So they'll probably be a bit disappointed with that, to be honest. But I think Bournemouth's unbeaten run is going to come to an end on Wednesday night. I think they're going to sneak this one 2-1 Bristol City. Cody?
I have gone as safe as house as I can for this one again. And this is why I talked about all draws when I was doing my predictions. Bournemouth have drawn 3 in a row. Bristol City have drawn 2 of the last 3. What other score can you go for? I know it's the Championship, but seriously, it's going to be a 1-1 draw.
Charlie?
Well, the reason I got a bit annoyed by Bournemouth was they, on paper, I didn't see the game, but they had line share of the ball, had more shots than I can ever see in one football match, and still managed to only. How they didn't win that game, I just needed them to win to get a couple of points. But it does highlight a thing that actually, like you say about the draws, I think they've been the better side in a lot of those games, but just we are lacking something up front, and I don't know how they solve that. Bristol City, though, we mentioned before, lost some serious momentum since that international break. You know, they were doing so well up to that point. And we did say it'd be interesting to see how it affected teams, and they haven't fared well from it. So it does lead towards a draw. I can't back Bournemouth because they'll only break my heart again after the weekend. So I'm going to have to stick with the same thing as Dan. But I'm going to try and get a correct score. I'm going to go for 0-0, no goals.
Okay. Next up, it's Derby versus Cardiff at Pride Park. I'm going to let Cody start on this one.
Well... Thanks. You can seem to this for the right fixtures. Cardiff have drawn 3 of their last 4. I mean, you might as well just copy and paste what I said in the last one. Cardiff have drawn 3 of the last 4. Derby drew their last game. The 3 before, they've either won or lost 1-0. 1-1 was the most common score last week. Can it be again this one? I'm not sure. But I'm going to go for it. No, I'm not. 0-0. 0-0. Oh, no, sure? No.
He's banked them in there.
No, 1-0. 1-0.
You can't change it now. I've wrote it down.
I will cross it out and put 1-0. And then when it's 0-0, I'm going to throw my toys out the pram.
1-1. You're going for 1-1. Charlie?
It's so tough, isn't it? Because actually, I don't know how much do you read into Friday night against Forest. Forest, I know we said about Houghton and all of that. I don't know. I don't know how convincing that still is. They're relying on set pieces, still Derby, things like that. So, do you know what? I think maybe away from home, Cardiff might sneak a 1-0 win. There's nothing to suggest it other than the fact that I still think Derby are in real trouble. And I need to definitely claw back some points. This is a slightly tactical answer. Any sort of Cardiff win will do, but I'm going to go 1-0 Cardiff.
Well, I've gone for 0-0. No, I'm joking. I've actually gone for 1-0 Cardiff. That's actually what I wrote down beforehand. No, I watched Derby on Friday night, and they were better than they have been in the last few weeks. It was a good free kick by Martin Wycombe. They were unlucky with the disallowed goal. They were unlucky that the goal they did concede, because it looked like it was a push in the back on Curtis Davis. Yeah. As I said, they got rid of Jack Marriott for Colin Kazim-Richards, but I'm really surprised they got rid of Jack Marriott, even though Jack Marriott wasn't really playing well yesterday for Sheffield Wednesday. We'll get on to Luton and Sheffield Wednesday in a minute. But, yeah, I don't know whether they're actually going to score goals. Really still won't be playing on Wednesday, or he might be, I might not. I doubt it. I just don't know whether they're going to score. Obviously, as I said, great free kick, but I'm not convinced by Derby at all. Cardiff, on the other hand, a bit of a disappointing start for Cardiff, but they've had a disappointing start last season. All right, it might have been under Neil Warnock, but they still had a slow start. But I think they'll find their way. It takes time. Set pieces is going to be absolutely crucial again for Cardiff. I think they're much stronger than what Derby would be at set pieces. They did concede from the set piece on Friday night, so that probably would boost Cardiff as well. But I do think that they'll sneak a 1-0 victory against Derby. It'd be Kiefer Moore. Kiefer Moore will score. Up next, it's probably the live game on Wednesday night, I believe. It's Luton Town versus Nottingham Forest at Kenilworth Road. Luton picked up a 1-0 victory against Sheffield Wednesday. It was deserved. It was a red card. It was a foul for the disallowed goal. Luton should have scored more than one, to be honest. They should have had 3 before half-time. Forest, yeah, they'll take the point, to be honest, because they weren't great in the first half against Derby. They got that equaliser from the corner. Chris Hughton's decided working things. I think knockout will probably start on Wednesday. Scoreline-wise, Luton would be delighted from those 3 points. They needed those 3 points. Even though you don't want to go 3 games losing in a week, that would just be heartbreaking for them. The new signings obviously started, played well. If Collins is back for Wednesday, hopefully, maybe, Luton could probably score more. Actually, I think Luton will win this one 2-1. I really do. Cody?
I unfortunately don't think Luton will win this one. As you mentioned, James Collins, based on the 10 days from a positive test, should be back for Wednesday, providing that he's well and healthy. The new signings were promising. Certainly Lockyer at the back, which is something we've needed for a while, with losing Carter Vickers in the summer in particular. But a good win away at Sheffield Wednesday. And to be fair, alluding to your earlier comments, I think most Sheffield Wednesday fans was fair in saying that we deserve to win. The only phrase that I am getting a bit bored of is teams like Luton, but it is what it is. Yeah. As a result, Nottingham Forest have drawn the last 2-1-all. It's been my favourite score of this Wednesday night. So basically, I think every game on Wednesday is going to be 1-all. So 1-all.
So I don't need to do the next game for you. You're already saying your last fixture is going to be 1-all.
I'll decide in a minute.
Charlie.
I don't know. It's tough because you look at Forest's last couple of games, and against Rotherham, they obviously drew. They beat Blackburn, who are probably not famed for their defensive capabilities. So and they only speak 1-0 against them. Again, Derby, like you say, they were lucky to get away with a point against. What I think the things with Forest, it depends. If teams set up to not really go bomb forward, I think they struggle a bit. Will that be Luton's approach at home? I think if Nathan Jones is clever, he probably will do. It's whether I go for a Luton win or a draw. And I haven't really backed Luton at home enough. So I'm going to try and break that tradition. I'm going to go for a Luton win, but I don't think there's going to be as many goals in it as what you said, Craig. I think it'll only be 1-0. The reason I say that is I don't think Luton are maybe as expansive at home because of that record we spoke about. And Forest, just if the team isn't going to come out and sort of leave gaps at the back for them, I think they struggle against them. So I'm going to go 1-0 Luton Town.
And the final game is a Yorkshire derby. It's Rotherham versus Sheffield Wednesday at New York Stadium. Rotherham, disappointing 3-0 defeat at Reading, obviously top of the table. Sheffield Wednesday got poor. And like when you obviously got a minus points deduction, you need to claw points back early. But they lost at midweek to Brentford. They lost at the weekend to Luton. They were rank poor, and they didn't really. All right, they had a goal up, but they didn't really look like scoring at all. And Sheffield Wednesday at home, I know they're away this week, but at home they haven't won since February. That's really concerning for a team that's obviously when you're playing the Championship, you need to win your home games. That's vital. Do you know what? This is probably no. I'm gonna play safe. I'm not convinced by both teams at all. I'll go for 1-1. Charlie.
Well, I'm going to nick a couple of your stats that I was going to use anyway. But, I mean, Wednesday are only 8 points off. And actually, I know what you're saying. I don't think it's as dire as maybe what it could be by this stage. But I do agree they're not in the greatest of form. But they are away from home. And away from home, they are definitely a bit stronger, as they proved against Birmingham, for example. So, Rotherham, they don't score many. They don't leak many either. But I just fancy Wednesday, maybe away from home. It's a pretty boring result. I don't think it'll be a great game to watch. Two teams are not in great form. But I think Wednesday away from home will sneak it 1-0. But I certainly wouldn't pay the iFollow money to watch it.
Cody.
In a similar vein to Charlie, actually, I was going to go for another 1-0, but then you did it. So I thought we've got to have one where we're different. And if that's the only game on Wednesday that's 1-0, I mean, I'm going to hand over to Mark. Mark will take over from Thursday. But I am going to go Sheffield Wednesday, a good win away from home the first day of the season, a win away to Birmingham. Their 2 league wins have been on the road. And you say about the home game advantage, but home advantage has basically gone since lockdown. So I'm going to go for an away win. Rotherham, it will be tight again, bar the Reading one at the weekend. They haven't lost any heavily. So I think it will be 2-1 to Sheffield Wednesday. And if anyone wonders what Craig's hand gesture was, he was telling us that as we're recording, Aberdeen have just made it 3-3 against Celtic.
And let's have a quick recap on our predictions for Matchday 8. There's a lot of 1-1s from Daniel Cody, a 4-3 thriller, Charlie thinks, for Blackburn versus Reading. And I've gone just pretty simple, a couple of comfortable 2-0 wins for Middlesbrough and for Watford, respectively. And those are our predictions. Let us know in the comment section down there what your predictions are. Do you agree with us? Do you disagree with us? Don't forget, like this video, subscribe to us, and you can follow us on Twitter at HonestFootball3. And we'll see you next time.